What's up guys, it's Dragon Ball for Life here. Today I'm back with another Hunter x Hunter video. Now in my last video where I talked about why Hunter x Hunter is overrated, I want to talk now about the Nen power system because I did mention that in the video that I had, though it went over an hour, so I didn't want to make it any longer, so I said I was going to be making a separate video. So here it is. Let's talk about the Nen power system and why I feel like personally a lot of people kind of over exaggerate the complexity of it and how in-depth it is. Now I'm not saying it's not an in-depth power system, but I feel like people make it sound like it's a perfect power system and that it's so complex. The reason I feel like people think that and why I kind of felt that a little bit was because there's just so much to it, but that doesn't mean that the stuff that is to it is complex. It just means that there's a ton of parts because they separate everything into small, tiny little categories, so it's too much to go over instead of just putting all one together. Now, I want to talk about Nen as a whole. I think Nen as a whole, a lot of people make it sound like it's a unique power system, but if I'm being honest, it's basically just ki and chakra, but just, chopped down to more of a smaller confined aspects. And the reason why I say that is when you look at ki from Dragon Ball and you look at Nen and you look at the properties and what it takes to achieve these abilities or what to do and what it does, it's basically the same thing, but there is a bit of a difference. Now, when it comes to ki, I feel like ki is the whole, is a complete whole version of Nen, whereas Nen is a multi-separate part of ki. Ki to me would be like an entire cake. It's like a whole cake that is not cut up into pieces. It's just a whole, and it's like right there. Whereas Nen is like a cake that's cut into many pieces. It's still the same size cake, but it's just that there's more pieces to pick apart from it. So that's why I feel like Nen feels a little more complex and creative, when in reality it's basically the same thing as ki. Why do I say that? Well, look at what it does. What does Nen do? Nen gives you the ability to enhance your durability with the aura, protection. It enhances your strength and your attacks. It allows you to do use your unique abilities. It allows you to pour it into your eyes so you can see things that you normally wouldn't be able to. You can sense other people's presence. You can lower your own presence and hide it from others. Then there's these other categories you can be part up with, where you have different abilities in it, like manipulator, enhancer, I forgot what the other ones were. There was quite a bit of them. There was like around 8 of them, specialists, all these other different categories you can fit in as a person naturally. And it also depends on your emotions and how your power works or how much you get from it. The only thing I will say that's different between this and ki, and I'm going to get into explain why they're both the same. The only thing that I see that's different between it and would put it a little more special is the whole making a contract with it. I think that's what makes it a little more special, but I also want to go into the whole contract aspect because some people really love it, but I think there are some people that generally don't like it, and I'm going to give my opinion on my stand on it. Now, like I said, it has those aspects. Now, what does ki do? When Dragon Ball characters have ki, they can enhance their physical durability, their strength, their speed. They can use it to, manipulate energy and fire energy attacks. Also do other crazy abilities like multiply themselves and, go in between dimensions and do all these other crazy stuff. And it has the ability to sense other people, lower your own energy, and, just see things that other people wouldn't see. So they're both the same thing. It's just that every part of, like I said, ki is just a whole. You just have it as a whole, and Nen is basically ki, but just separated into separate categories and analyzed further. Whereas I think ki in Dragon Ball, Toriyama didn't give us explanations or answers and stuff. We as fans had to come up with those explanations and answers in our own head and analyze how their abilities work. Whereas in Hunter x Hunter, it's explained and has gone through meticulously through a process to explain to us, whereas the other one we just were thrown in the lion's den by Toriyama and said, hey, solve it yourself, how it works. That's why a lot of people get confused about how ki works, but then at the end of the day people still get confused about how Nen works because of how many parts there are to it. but like I said, they're the same thing. They have the same abilities. The way they work is the same. The only difference is how they work. How they work as a whole together. Because Nen, you have you have the Zetsu, you have the Ren, you have the Ten, you have all these other things, and this is where it gets confusing because when you have the stuff, you have to remember all the stuff. So it's like when you have, it's not like it's complex stuff, but it's overload. It's too much information, and when you put too much of stuff and have too much variety, then it becomes a little more complex. But it's not complex because it's hard to understand. It's only complex because they overdid it and they overput things in there when they could have simplified them by putting them together. Because like in Hunter x Hunter, for you to have high durability, you can't be able to. You have to have what's the thing called? If you want to have high durability, but also have high attack potency, you need to do something different, and that is spare that energy that you have protecting your body, put it into a part of your body like your fist to go for a punch, so the rest of your body is less protected by the energy and your fist has that energy. But and like I said, it is because also they can't really sense people's abilities unless they get rid of that aura and use it up in their eye, which makes it less practical in use in battle compared to Ki. Ki is more efficient in a fight than Nen is. Nen is very, like I said, Nen, all these parts that you have it in Ki. The only difference is they all work together, whereas in Hunter x Hunter, you can only use one different aspect, or, if you think a little more, you can change them into a little bit. Mostly you can only use one of the abilities. And if you want to use the other one, you have to let go of that ability to do the other one. So if you want to go to another one, you have to get rid of Zetsu to go to 10. And if you want to go to 10, you have to get rid of Nen or whatever. And that's where it gets a little confusing because of all these other stuff. Whereas in Dragon Ball, you don't have to get rid of something if you wanted. If you want to increase your attack potency, you don't have to sacrifice completely your your defense. You can still have a strong defense, and increase your offense. You can still sense people's energy and still be durable. In Hunter x Hunter, if you want to sense somebody's energy, it requires you to use that energy that you have, the aura that you have protecting your body, to go into your eyes. So it makes it weaker. You put limitations, and the limitation is basically you can do only one or two things individually. So if you want to do something else, you have to stop doing the other thing and then do the other one. Whereas in Dragon Ball, you can do all of them at the same time. You can sense somebody's energy and still have your guard up. You don't need to, you don't need to get all the energy from your body to go to your eyes. They can sense and still have durability. So it's very impractical when it comes to Nen compared to Ki. The same abilities, like I said. And you see the same techniques too. When Gon and Killua were being taught by Bisky, and she was teaching them in the Greed Island game, she was like, oh yeah, control your energy to your fist. The rest of your body will be weaker, but it will still have an energy force, and your fist will have an attack. But if you are hit while you were throwing a punch where you transfer your energy to that fist, you will be severely damaged. Now in Dragon Ball, they do this too. We've seen this where characters have transferred energy to specific parts of their body and use it. Goku did this when he transferred his energy to his finger to make his finger be able to block Trunks' attacks. The rest of his body, the energy from it, went to his finger. He did this also in the movie, the Janemba movie, I think it was called Wrath of the Dragon. I forgot what it was called. Where he was fighting Janemba, his fists start glowing. He punches him. He cuts right through him. What he did was he did the same thing Gon did. He transferred that energy to his fist and punched it through him. The only difference is it takes more control and more time to do that in Hunter x Hunter. Whereas Dragon Ball, Ki is far more efficient, and you can do that easier. Once you get the hang of it, you can do it instantly and protect yourself. So it's more useful than Nen is. Nen has too many problems with it when it comes to that. But I think it's the same thing. It's just you have to focus on specific different parts where it kind of makes it more complex. Whereas, like I said, Ki, you can do all those things at once. You can have high durability, you can have high strength, you can have super speed, you can sense people's energy, you can do different techniques and stuff, and it doesn't become weakness. There are some times where you can't, like if you're launching an attack, you're more susceptible to damage, just like in a real fight. Like when Raccoon was going to do his explosion thing, he was charging up, Goku attacked him before he could release it, and he attacked him because that was an opening. He was weakened. He was putting himself in a state where he was weakened, and we see that in Hunter x Hunter too. When you transfer over your energy to a specific part of your body to increase the damage. So the way I see it, I don't see it as more complex or some better written. I just think that is the same shit. It's just that I feel like Nen is kind of trash, if I'm being honest. Like, let's be honest. Like, a lot of the stuff, you have to, because it's like, like I said, in Dragon Ball with Ki, you can use all those aspects at the same time. You don't need to get rid of it. The only time you need to do that is if, let's say, you're lowering your power. If you're lowering your power to 0, then yeah, you're not going to have the strength and durability and speed and all that stuff. But besides that, you can have all those things at once. It just also depends. Like, if you're going to fire an energy attack, you have to, you have to be cautious, because when you're firing those attacks, you're kind of, your guard, you lose your energy, your guard, because you're using up on, the attack. Whereas, like, in Hunter x Hunter, Nen, you can only use one of those things one at a time, so you have to be more selective with it when you do it. You can't just have durability all the time and do all those other stuff. You have to lower that to do this, but then you come in that and stuff. So, you, like, when you do Gyo to sense their energy, you can't really have your guard up, so it makes it more dangerous because it's very, very limited. Whereas Ki, there's no real level of limitation, and like I said, it's more complex because they actually do explain it. Toriyama did not explain shit. Us as fans, we had to find out how it worked. Like, for example, when Trunks was able to cut Frieza into pieces, we're like, how the hell is he able to cut him with a sword? And under 18 blocks and destroyed, he can take a planet getting destroyed, and then we realized that the way it works is you can transfer your energy into inanimate objects to increase their strength and make them as strong as you. So Trunks, his sword is nothing special. Naturally, if that sword was swung by a regular human towards Frieza, it would have shattered in pieces. The only reason that it's able to cut Frieza into pieces is not because he's weak or that. It's because Trunks has mastery of transferring his energy into a sword, which is explained a little bit later in somewhere in Dragon Ball called Shin. But the way we get that information, you have to go through multiple different mediums, because we only get that real explanation from Dragon Ball Online in the story, where in the future Gohan has a book that he writes and teaches at school for people, and he teaches them that technique. And then we see Trunks there. So it's so hard to get that information, whereas in that, you just watch the show, they explain it to you. So I think that's the real basic difference when it comes to it. Toriyama didn't explain shit, which it does suck, but it technically does help out the fans to be a little bit smarter, because now it requires, they're not spoon feeding us this, they're not giving us, like Hunter x Hunter, they're feeding us this information to understand. And for me, I caught on to it really easily because I've been watching Dragon Ball for years, and I've been able to realize this on our own, because some people don't still, like, the area of effect when, somebody fired off an energy attack, and these guys can destroy planets, but they hit the ground and it only destroys a street block. And it's like, well, they literally are able to condense all that destructive energy into a small confined space. So it can still destroy a planet, but they minimize the blast radius where it destroys only a small specific part. It was never explained in the show, but we know that because we were able to, analyze it ourselves. So I don't want to insult any Hunter x Hunter fans, but I think Dragon Ball fans are a little bit smarter in that aspect, because we don't need to be explained this. We already know this. So when I was watching this, when people were like, oh my god, this is so intricate, to me it was like, well, I already knew about this. I already watched Dragon Ball. I had to think about this myself. So seeing this is kind of simple. It's simplistic to me. The whole training with Gohan having to transfer the energy to one hand, I'm like, that's simple. I've seen that in Dragon Ball. You transfer that energy to attack, to part of your body when you're going to attack. You don't do that instantly. You don't do that right before you start the fight, because if you do that and have your fist up and all your energy transferred to your fist and the rest of your body doesn't have that to protect you, you go for a punch, you're going to get destroyed if you miss and they hit you. So in Dragon Ball, what they would do is once when they launch and they're about to hit, that's when they transfer it over there, but they have better control with their energy, whereas in Hunter x Hunter, they don't have that great. Also, the way they got stronger in Hunter x Hunter, the training, was nothing that complex. It was simply, most of the training was your aura, your Nen, keep on pouring into it. It was basically endurance. It was, you know, they had to charge up for a longer amount of time. They charged up for 3 hours, and that's how they increased their power or contain their power. That's all they did. They didn't do anything really crazy, in my opinion. All they did was do a lot of endurance training, and that increased their Nen reserves and made them stronger that way. And then they were able to use it. Though again, their special move was a little more unique, especially with what their, you know, class that they're part of, like Enhancer or Manipulator or, you know, Specialist and stuff. That was a little more unique. But as a whole, the abilities and the techniques weren't that complex to think of. And how Nen works, to me, isn't that complex. It's just that when you go with Zetsu and Retsu and all these other stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to remember these stupid-ass names. I'm not going to remember all this shit. Just make it simpler. And when I mean simpler, I don't mean like it's complex. I mean you're over-explaining shit and putting into such small categories when you can just put them together. Stop making it so much more complex than it actually is. And it's like I said, not complex because it's intelligent. It's complex because they fucking confine it to too much of a small of a space, you know, to explain it. They're over-explaining everything. You don't have to over-explain everything. Sometimes just, you know, make it simpler by combining them. So that's what I don't like. But the contract thing, I think that's where it gets different from Dragon Ball, because you can use Ki to do all the same stuff that you can do with Nen, and crazy abilities too, like Nen does. Though Nen's is just specifically about the character, like the person's motions. Motions do play into Dragon Ball 2. The angrier you get, the more your Ki reserves rise. If you have less of, you know, will to do it, you're going to be lower and stuff. And also, especially mentally, like, you know, how Vegeta was able to overcome Babidi's control was because he had a strong mental fortitude. If he didn't, he would have been controlled like Babidi and stuff. But Vegeta mentally was too tough to be taken over. But Nen, the crazy thing about it, it has the whole contract thing. Now, I'll admit, I kind of got confused. I thought the contract thing only worked for specialists, and that's why they were so unique, because, you know, they said specialists, they didn't really explain what they do, and I assumed that specialists, the unique thing about them compared to other classes was the fact that they can make contracts, but then Gon made it, and he was just an enhancer. So I was like, okay, then specialists, I still don't know what the hell they do, what's so unique about them. I mean, yeah, you can say Kurapika is unique, but the only reason his power got unique and he was able to use all the other ones 100% was because of the crazy contract that he placed on himself. But yeah, the contract stuff, I do think that's interesting, but there's some people that don't like it. A lot of people say, well, this makes it creative, this makes more depth, this gives them a reason to have a power-up without being a BS power-up, and on top of that, there's a drawback to it, so then there's, you know, it limits it. And drawbacks usually people like. But for me personally, I think it's a lazy cop-out. This is what a lot of other people believe, and I agree with them. I think it's a lazy cop-out. This is just to give a character that would be far weaker an insane power boost so they can match up, simply by saying, well, I made this ridiculous contract. And yes, you can say that's intricate, that they made this or that contract, but to be honest, it makes no sense. How do these contracts work? Where the hell do they come from? Because what they explain to us in the show is that the way Nen works is Nen is your aura. It's your natural energy and it's your emotions. And from your emotions, your aura is going to be different and the stuff you can do with it. But contracts don't make sense. How does your aura create a contract? What the fuck does a contract is? They never really went in depth to explain the contract. I felt the same way with, you know, the Chimera Ant arc, where they introduced the Chimera Ants, and people love that, but they never explained where the hell they came from. They didn't explain how the Chimera Ants came to be. They just said, well, they mutated. How? They never explained depthly. These big enemies and threat just came out of nowhere. It was like somebody pulled out of their ass and like, yep, here's a new threat. We don't really know where he came from. We just said he's here. That's how I felt about the contracts. Contracts is never explained. How does that work? Like, your powers are by your aura. How does an aura create a contract that does this? And like I said, it makes characters that shouldn't be that level of power, without even having to train, gain an absurd amount of power simply by making contracts. Yes, you can say, well, these contracts are serious, but they really don't do much. I mean, look at Kurapika. We've only seen it twice. Kurapika, he did it, and his one was only to kill a Phantom Troop, but then he ended up only killing literally one of the members only. Yes, he killed the other woman by breaking the contract, but he technically didn't go after her to kill her. But he only killed one person, and it was pointless, and that means that he can't use that power against any other character, so that's pretty useless. And then Gon's one nearly killed him off anyways, and he used it once again, only against one person. So what's the point of these contracts? Oh, we've seen once. Also, it's like, he was able to surpass the strongest hunter there, the chairman, by making this contract. So it does seem like a BS power up. Like, these contracts make no sense logically. It's like being in a world where, you know, characters, you know, get their powers from, you know, science, where it's like some serum, and then they do something that involves magic, and it's like, that doesn't make sense. Like, where the fuck did magic come from this? Your powers were based off of science and genetic mutations. How the hell are you able to do magical shit now? That fucking makes no sense. That's how I felt by this. How is something that uses your aura, gets you stronger, how does it create some form of a contract with your aura? That doesn't make any sense. You went from something that was like, you know, it was more like on the, I guess you can say, supernatural aspect, to completely supernatural. You did this, they did the same thing with the whole, you know, Killua's sister having the whole wish ability. It was like, what the fuck? Where did magic come into the show? So I feel like it was very inconsistent. Contracts don't really make much sense, and I do feel like, though they are clever in a way of, you know, putting more tension, I also still think of it as a cop-out. I think it's just as lazy to me as, you know, having the power of friendship giving you a bullshit, ridiculous power-up, like a character getting beat up and he has power of friendship, and he obtains it. It's just that this one's a little more, you know, a little more, I guess, clever and strategic done, but it's not that great. But yeah, Nen to me is not that complex. It's a very basic abilities. It's just when they get to the whole Zetsu and all this other stuff, and then the enhancer types and stuff where they have unique characters. The enhancer stuff, and, you know, the emitter and manipulator and specialist and you know, conjurer thing, I don't hate that. I think that's cool. That's like, you know, in what's the thing called? Black Clover, where they have different magical abilities. Some have fire abilities, some have ice, some have water, some have metal, some have, you know, they have their own unique stuff. I like that, but I don't really like the Zetsu and stuff like that, because then it's just, like I said, Dragon Ball, you can do all those things at once. The only difference is, in Hunter x Hunter, you have to switch over from between each. You can't do the same. You can't do multiple of them at once, because the abilities are very limited. You have to switch out of one to go to the next one. Whereas Dragon Ball, you can do all this stuff. And like I said, it's basically the same stuff in Dragon Ball. All the stuff that you see, explain to me, besides the contracts and the specialist stuff, you know, unique stuff like that, what is the difference between Nen and Ki? Same thing. Nen gives you enhances abilities. It can help you sense energy. It can help you lower your energy. It can help you get a protection barrier. It can help you get stronger, faster. It can help you fire energy attacks. Use unique abilities. Get special moves. Same thing as that. The only thing, like I said, is Ki's more efficient. If I was to go from Nen or Ki, I'll use Ki, because Nen requires you too much to stop one ability and then go to the next, whereas Ki, you can flow through it easily. So I think it's the same concepts. It's just that Hunter x Hunter explains in detail everything, whereas Dragon Ball didn't, and we as fans had to figure it out. But Dragon Ball has complicated writing too when it comes to, like, transferring the energy to an inanimate object to make it as strong as you, minimizing the blast radius of an attack that would destroy a planet, but you can minimize it to just destroying, you know, an island or whatever, you know, creating clones, making it duplicate and stuff, transferring your energy to somebody else, healing. There's so many complex stuff about Ki and how it works with, like, you know, psychic ability and stuff. So I don't think Ki is that simplistic either, but I don't think Nen is that complex. But if you like Nen, if you love Nen, if you say it's your favorite, you know, power system, go right ahead. It's okay. But I do think that you guys are over exaggerating when you do say stuff like that. To me, it doesn't really make much sense. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow.